Hey guys, Ira Feuerstein. Welcome to No Bullshit with Ira Feuerstein. It's the premier podcast for business owners looking for tips, tricks, and advice from some of the best minds in the world. Now, do me a favor. If you like the content that you see, please make sure to subscribe via the subscribe button. And don't forget, there's a little bell icon next to it. Don't forget to hit that bell icon. Really super important because it ensures that you're always going to be notified when I post new content. In addition, make sure you smash the like, comment, share buttons if you like the content. If you don't like the content, make sure you make comments. It shows whether or not you like the information we're putting out, and it helps us hone in and continually get better and better at what we do. So today we're doing things a little different setup here in my home studio. I couldn't make it into the office studio today. And I wonder who is waiting on the other end of this video to give us some no BS knowledge drops. Let's see who it is.
What's up, baby? It is I, Keenan.
Nice, Keenan. Oh my gosh, mind blown. So Keenan, just so you guys know, is the only guy on LinkedIn that I'm connected with. Actually, he's the only guy in the world that I know of that goes by one name other than Prince. That was the only guy I could think of. Had just one name. So hey, welcome to the show today. And let's go ahead and get started. So the first question I've always wanted to know is how in the heck do you get to just use one name? Like, I can never pull it off.
Well, I mean, Feuerstein, yeah, probably not. No, you can go with Ira.
Yeah,
I mean,
but it's not as cool.
Okay, yes, look, I got lucky. My last name is cool. People have been calling me my last name for years, right? So I just saw a branding opportunity and I snagged it. I mean, there's lots of Jim Keenans out there, but just by going with Keenan, it just fit. So I ran with it.
That's awesome. That is so cool. That's so cool. So tell me a little bit about your background.
What's that? Here's the key. The reason most people don't do it is because they're stuck by accepting boundaries that have no definition. So most people wouldn't do it because in their head they've been told I have to have two names. So they operate from two names. Right? We don't realize how much in our day-to-day, in our businesses, we do shit because that's what we think we're supposed to do, but never stopping us. Well, why can't I?
That's interesting. Right, that's an interesting point because it goes down the path of everyone sort of acts like sheep. They sort of just go along the same path every day. It's just the way it's done, and I'm not willing to take any risks, right?
Yep.
Now, it's interesting. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing. I'd love to hear about kind of where you came from. You know, before we get to kind of where you're at, I'd love to hear about some of that background.
Ooh, you opened a fucking massive can of worms. So you got to be more specific because I have a very, very unique upbringing. So where do you want me to start? Where do you want me to go?
Tell you what, you tell me whatever you think is interesting. We'd love to hear it, whatever you think.
So it's just that it's interesting?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I grew up in Massachusetts. I was adopted by a white family in 1968. So you figure that one out for a second. How progressive do you have to be in 1968 to adopt a little black kid? Actually, they adopted two. I have a brother as well. And my dad was the son of a Irish steelworker, a Catholic Irish steelworker, Roman Catholic and Irish Catholic, and my mom was the daughter of a highly educated business executive who was the general manager of the B&M Railroad, and they were the first mixed couple in the town of Reading where they got married. Well, mixed in those days was an Irish marrying a Catholic.
Wow.
So then if you think they shocked the world when they did that, they doubly shocked the world when by 1970 they had 3 kids, 2 black kids and a little blonde head that was their natural child. So that's how I grew up, with a very unique perspective on the world, living in 2 worlds at one time.
Wow. So yeah, that must have been really interesting. There's no doubt. I can't imagine, especially being the first in a town. That's a pretty big deal.
Big time.
So tell me what compelled you to start your company as sales guy? How'd you get started? Talk me through that.
Well, okay. So this is interesting. I didn't deliberately go out to start this company. So I had started 3 companies before. They all failed for different reasons. Some of them I loved to death. They were great ideas, but they just didn't work out. This one I started by default. So I started blogging in 2009 as a way to build an audience to help act as a conduit to expand my career. So if I ever found myself out of a job, right, because I was at the executive level, and what you'll learn is the higher you go up, the longer it takes to find a new gig unless you moved from one to another. But if you lose your job, it takes a long time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I did not like that. So I said, well, what if I build an audience of 200 or 300 people writing about sales and how to run sales teams and all that? And maybe when I need a job, I can just write on the blog, hey, you guys know me, I'm looking for a gig. And I thought that would expedite the process. Well, little did I know, 2 years into it, 712 blog posts, I got 20,000 followers. I'm listing all these best lists. And people started reaching out saying, hey, I read your article. Can you help me? And I was like, oh, maybe this is my business. So I started the consulting business in 2011 and haven't looked back.
Wow, that's crazy.
Hi, it's Eva, your recorder and meeting assistant.
Hold on a second, my computer's being stupid. Hold on. There we go. All right. So wow, that's pretty interesting. So tell me about some hurdles that maybe you had to overcome. I mean, over the years, I'm sure, building this business, there must have been some hurdles. How'd you overcome them? Love to hear about it.
So really, I've been very lucky. There's been no major hurdles, small ones, right? Like, when I first started it, coincidentally enough, I was getting divorced. I got separated 4 months after I started the business. My ex-wife was a stay-at-home mom, so I had a massive liability to her. So the stress of being able to drive enough business, not only to take care of myself, but to pay my obligations as a recently divorced father and ex-husband. So I had to make sure that I could create the inbound traffic that was going to work, and I just got maniacal. That was the first barrier. I had to create an inbound engine that was going to bring me enough business that I could rely on it and it was repeatable. So I did that, and then I added a new division, a recruiting division, and then that allowed me to bring in more money and tack on to what I was doing. Because if I got these customers and I'm out there helping them, and also like, look, you need to replace this person, you need to hire these people, I was sending them off to other recruiters. I'm like, wait a minute. So yeah. I built the recruiting division and sent them to me, or not to me, but to that division. And so, I mean, really, it's just been trying to figure out when and where to grow and how to invest the capital. There is a it's real when people say, well, it's hard to grow because of the lack of capital. We had the demand. It's the capital constraints. And I didn't want to, first, it's not a good business to, but I didn't want to bring anybody else in and take anybody's money. So that was the hardest part.
Yeah, it's interesting because I talk to a ton of business owners around the country. I travel quite a bit. And, one of the things that I noticed that you said that really resonated with me was that many business owners don't plan. Like they just fly by the seat of their pants. And I like how you had a very methodical approach to approaching the business to ensure that you had different pieces of the business built to ensure that you're always covered. I think that's where a ton of business owners, they're really lacking today.
Well, look, what do they call something is the mother of invention or something, whatever that phrase is. I had to, right? So in a lot of ways, I could guess my personal life conditions forced me to. Maybe other people wouldn't, but I was like, I didn't want to go back and work for the man.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I know what I need to do, so you better figure this out. And so I just went and figured it out.
That's amazing. So, over time you wrote this book, Gap Selling. So I'd love to have you take some time, maybe talk through some of the concepts in the book, because I think that could be really beneficial to the people watching the podcast. Yeah.
And I think to transition as well, I wrote Gap Selling on purpose to help grow the business to the next level. So remember when I told you first my job was to make sure enough stuff could come in to keep me going. Well, now that happened, but then I realized I can only take on so much business, right? And so I wanted to get the business beyond Keenan, right? It needed to be a sales guy, not Keenan and a sales guy.
Yeah.
So the whole point was, well, I'm not going to go hire consultants. They're too expensive and they could screw up, and that's the fast way to the bottom, right? Because they're just too expensive. So I said, I know what I'll do. I'm going to create my own selling methodology. So it took a long time, but finally got it, and that's what Gap Selling is. And as I wrote the book, I built a training division right behind it. So now we can sell the training. I can hire trainers, and that whole division can go out and do its own thing, whether I'm training or not training, which scales beyond me. And so that's where the concept of Gap Selling came from, was to grow the business. And really, Gap Selling is about the idea that the way people have sold in the past does not align with how buyers buy. And I was like, we got to fix that. And that's why salespeople were the main cause of most of their failures. When people went dark, it was the salesperson's fault because they did something wrong. When they had issues over price, it was the salesperson's fault. The salesperson was actually creating the environment that were causing them to lose.
I don't doubt that at all. Like I see sales guys all the time and I'm like, dude, you need to like get some training here or something. So tell me a little bit more about sort of the training side of the business, because that's interesting to me. What kind of types of things do you train, I guess business owners or businesses, sales teams in general? What do you do?
So basically we train them on the gap selling methodology. So unlike most sales books, gap selling, you can either read and you can apply some of the actual techniques or some of the methods, or you can hire us and we will walk you through a whole curriculum that illustrates teaches, and builds the skills to make you a gap seller. And by becoming a gap seller, it increases your ability to close deals, shorten sales cycles, increase average deal size, overcome objections, address pricing issues, all that stuff.
So tell me, so if you had like, because I mean, people should be getting this book, right? They should be reading it and living it and breathing it and implementing it, more importantly. But if you had like one tip out of the book, for a sales guy or a business owner, looking to teach a sales guy, what would like your one tip be?
Be problem centric. Traditional selling has you at product centric, and if you're a business owner and you built your product, or you were an electrician, or you were the builder, or you did the job before you started building and taught other people to do it, you have a default mechanism to be overly proud of your product. So you start talking about it. You're like, look at this cool pen that I created, and it's made of onyx, and that's XYZ silver. I can't even think, 100% silver, whatever the damn thing is called, right? It's got this, that it does this, and it doesn't. Stop talking about your product and start understanding the problems your product solves for your customers, because that's the only reason they buy it. I don't care what this pen can do unless there's a problem or an issue that I'm trying to solve that this pen can solve. And if it can't, it doesn't. So focus on the problem. Get closer into your customer side.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the whole concept of like most salespeople love hearing themselves talk.
Yep.
But they should be listening, right?
They should be asking questions then listening. I hear it's too colloquial, I believe is the right word, too trite. So you got to listen more. No, I can listen to someone talk for hours and get me nowhere. You need to ask the right questions, then listen.
That makes sense. So when you sit down with a guy and you're trying to, you need to come into it looking as you're trying to solve issues for them. And maybe they're issues they don't even know they have. To me, that's like the home run. If you could find issues that you can solve that they didn't even know they had, through asking questions, how could you not win the deal?
Exactly. Yep. So
and
then what you do is tie that to the impact.
Go ahead.
No, then you tie that to the impact. So if I can find a problem you didn't know you had, and then I can highlight the size of the problem, the impact it's having to your organization, then I increase my chances of winning.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. When you first started out, you were trying to make this move into your own thing. What do you wish you had known when you started out? Like, was there something that you just didn't know that caught up to you eventually, or what did that look like?
No.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I'm not trying to be a jerk. I think I probably got lucky to a certain degree. But no, looking back, there's nothing, if I had known this, I could have avoided that. If I had known this, I could have avoided this. Nothing.
That's great. That's awesome. I mean, I wish I could say the same thing, but I can't.
I can with other gigs, with other gigs that didn't work out, but so far not on this one.
That's great. So if, business owners are watching this podcast, and if you could give a CEO of a, small to mid-sized business, like one tip to 10X their business, what would it be and why?
I'm going to give you two. It's going to be a bonus round. I'm going to give you two.
Love it.
Right? The first one is stop trying to fucking 10X your business. That is the dumbest phrase on the planet. Because if anybody knows math, 10X is basically unachievable. Okay? So if I have $100,000 business, 10Xing it makes it $1 million business. No one grows at 10x, people.
Right.
It just doesn't happen like that. And even if you can do it in the first year, you ain't doing it in the second year. So just stop, okay? Stop this 10x shit. Get focused on the fundamentals of your business. Build a sustainable growth model. Know your customers. Know the value of your product. Know the problems you solve, right? And just grow a good, solid business. That's tip one. The second tip that is absolutely the most critical, and it kind of reinforces the question you asked me before, is get good at understanding the value of people and picking people. I think that is the one thing that we're always told. It's a bit trite. It's overplayed in its expression, but in reality and in execution, hands down, unequivocal, the most important asset you have is your people. And I can pinpoint when my organization did better and when it didn't do better just on who was in what roles at what time. Because we're small, right? It's not like someone can get lost. It's a core group of us. And when a couple of those core group people were the baddest people I had, we were skyrocketing. When they weren't so good and it was just me, we were flat and not doing as well. It is absolutely critical that you put more value in identifying, hiring, developing, and you putting people in the right roles. Hands down.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So what's something you have failed at over the years?
Oh, man, I failed at 3 different companies, failed at my marriage, failed at losing deals. I mean, a micro and macro level. I mean, micro level, I fail every day, right? I fail every day at the micro level. At the macro level, the biggest failures I've had are really just the couple of businesses that didn't work in my marriage. And outside of that, nothing. Because I really subscribe to that argument that from a macro perspective, you don't fail until you quit.
And I think a lot of people quit way too early.
Yeah, I don't quit very often.
Yeah, I mean, they just give up. They just don't see a way out. And instead of just hunkering down and sort of looking at it a different way, they just give in, which really sucks. It's pretty pathetic, actually, most times.
And I don't see failure as a bad thing. Some of the pain hurts, but I have this phrase, right, that maximize your failure ROI.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, maximize your failure ROI. If you're not getting ROI out of your failures, then that is one expensive failure.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some things you're curious about right now? Like, what intrigues you?
This is a business part. Look, I went to school for political science, and I wanted to be a lawyer for a while. I've processed the idea, entertained the idea of getting into politics. So a lot of my free time that's not focused on business is very civilly oriented. It's very politically oriented, and so I'm intrigued by how this country thinks.
Yeah,
I just can't process it. I mean, look. You get on Facebook, I try to avoid it, but you get on Facebook and you see all these people arguing about anti-vaccinations, arguing about doctors, arguing about the trade, arguing about this. Do you know what our college graduation rate is in this country?
No idea.
It's just about 50%.
Wow.
Okay? Just about 50%. But we got 300 million people running around fucking Facebook to act as if they know what the hell's going on and voting and getting engaged and sharing their opinions about shit, and they didn't even go to college.
Right.
We had America suffering the biggest freaking Dunning-Kruger syndrome I've ever seen in my entire life. You don't know what Dunning-Kruger is? Look it up.
Right? Because I'm not a smart guy, so I'm gonna look it up.
So it just blows my mind. Ignorance is across all parties. Ignorance is got us on the fast track to the bottom because we're not humble enough to say, I don't know. We're not humble enough to let go of our own biases. And now we have confirmation bias trying to push the left agenda or the right agenda and not actually the appropriate agenda.
Right. So last question. So what if you weren't doing the sales thing, what profession would you take up?
If I was still trying to build my financial independence and all of that, like if I was in the beginning of my career, then I would probably get into venture capital, private equity. If I'm at the end of my career and money's not an issue or someone dropped $1 billion in my lap, I'd get into politics.
Nice. Well, hey, Keenan, dude, thank you so much for joining. That was a no BS interview. It was great. Awesome job. And thank you so much. I appreciate you for joining us today.